Welcome to the Leadership Roundtable, a podcast with Dr. Conway Edwards. We are so grateful that you joined us today. Want to encourage you throughout this time to go to our webpage, visit 1cc.com/leadership roundtable, where you can download resources, show notes, and check out other podcasts. Today, I'm here with the man, Dr. Conway Edwards, and we're here to talk about the fact that all of a sudden, a finger was snapped and we're all church planners again.
That's exactly right. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm here with the man, Pastor Matt Anderson. And here we go. We're going to talk a little bit about what does it feel like to replant the local church. We were scattered. Now some people are beginning to come back, but it's an entirely new world with digital and physical, and now everybody is in church planting mode.
That's right. And whether, this kind of applies to business too. You need to think of a third. As we've come back, as we've reopened, as everyone has, you're probably roughly experiencing about a third of the people coming back as they used to. You've got about a third of the people who are on the fence. They're waiting for a vaccine. They want to come back. They want to wait. They want flexibility. And then you've got a third of the people who are not coming back. Say bye-bye.
That's right.
They're gone. They want to stay digital. And they're not coming back. So we've got a third, and we've got to now re-engage.
That's right.
And figure out how to connect.
I think we should talk a little bit about that last third who's not coming back. They're not coming back for multiple reasons. One, we meaning the church, has improved so much on our digital content that they find it so much more experientially better for them if they watch it from the comfort of their home. Some have decided that, they might have gone to another church that never shut down, and they just decided, I'm going to like that church a little more because they kept me during this pandemic, and so they're not going to come back. Some people, their jobs either have lost it or got new opportunities, and so now they're gone because they've moved out of town and gone somewhere else. So there are a myriad of reasons why some people, Matt, might have just gotten disenfranchised with the church and believe that the church has no place in their lives again, and so they're gone. So whatever the reason, what you need to be aware of is that a lot of people are not coming back anymore, and so now you have to re-engage by being a church planter again.
And truth be told, for the last 8 months, we've scrambled to teach people that it's okay to stay at home.
Right.
This is just as good as it used to be.
Right.
We've trained everyone over 8 months. Presence has changed. It used to be you had to be here to be present. Now you can be at home and be present. So we've trained everyone.
Yep.
And now here we are, time to come back, and we've all got new habits, new ways of life, new or rearranged priorities.
We really, really have. And as the church has scattered, now the question is, how do we begin the process of slowly pulling back together? How do we re-engage the body with regular rhythms and habits that are healthy, not just for the individual, but for the family? What does that look like? And what kind of mindset do we need to have in this season as pastors, as ministry leaders, as small group leaders, as kids ministry leaders and student ministry leaders? What kind of mindset do we need to have? And what are some of the things that we should be focused on if you're going to replant this church successfully? So that's really what we're after, because you need to be processing the fact that we're not going to come back fully until perhaps fall 2021. So that's September 2021 when you'll be back to where you were before COVID. And that's just an assumption if we can handle and get a hold of a vaccine quickly to keep the number of people that are getting sick as low as possible. So Pastor Matt, what are you thinking?
We want to talk a little bit about what we just shared is what does it look like to be a church planter or to have that mindset. Some of you may be church planters, you may be entrepreneurs, or maybe you think you've worked so hard to where you never have to go back to that.
Yeah.
Well, right now you're back to that. Or maybe you've never been a church planter or you've never started from scratch. You've now got to figure out what it looks like to get down in the trenches and to go hard like you're starting over from scratch. So we have a few things we want to share with you, about 10 or 11 ideas or thoughts about what it means to be a church planter, to have this entrepreneurial mindset. So number one, is everyone. You need to have an owner's mentality or an owner's mindset.
You bet. So what we had to do for this, for all these 11, is we had to go back to when we first planted a church and simply ask the question, what did we do? What were we engaged in on a daily basis? And so these 10 come out of what we had done and what we have re-engaged and has now begun doing as a church and as a leadership team, which makes it imperative that you think as a church planter and re-engage people. So the first one, Pastor Matt, you said was having an owner's mentality. You can tell the difference whenever you go into any store if you're talking to the owner or if you're talking to somebody who works there. You can just tell. Oftentimes, I will walk into a restaurant and just watch what's happening, and I'd go to the person and say, "You're the owner of this place, aren't you?" And invariably, they'd say yes, because everything matters to the owner. Everything matters. Seeing it through the eyes of a new person matters. Seeing how the food is prepared matters. Seeing how they get the food and put it on the plate matters. Seeing how they take it out to the customer matters. All of it matters. And so for you and I, we have to now try to train all our team members that we should be thinking like owners. What does that mean when it comes to the local church? That means from the moment you drive onto the property, you must make sure that nothing messes with the message. The message is what you're trying to get people. You're trying to get them to know and have a personal relationship with God or grow in their relationship with God. And so everything matters. If somebody drives on the property and it's messy, then that now becomes the message. If they deal with a parking lot attendee that's not treating them well, that becomes the message. If they're dealing with an usher or a greeter, that becomes the message. If the praise team is not doing well, they weren't prepared thoroughly, then that becomes the message. And then by the time they get to the message, they've had so many negative messages, they really don't want to hear the rest of it. And so your job is to view everything you do through the eyes of somebody walking in for the first time and ask and answer the question, is the environment right? Is the environment and the message appealing? Is the worship experience? Is it engaging? And you should be asking all those questions because that's what an owner cares about. And if all of us are owners, and we should be, because all of us are individuals that have been saved by the grace of God, so it is our responsibility to be good stewards of this thing that God has called us to. And so your assignment is to make sure you're just walking slowly through the crowds, thinking like an owner. If somebody is disgruntled because of something, you should empower your team. Hey, whatever it takes to change that person's mindset and to make them walk out of here feeling like they had a great experience and are fully satisfied, then you should empower your people to do that. If that means everybody walks around with Starbucks gift cards, so if we disappointed somebody, we'll make it better again, then you do that. But that's what an owner does, because an owner cares that every person has a great experience and a great encounter with God. Pastor Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I just, the question came to my head is, as we get more established, as we get more settled in what we're doing, some of these things we delegate away. And what are some examples for you or for other senior leaders of things that maybe a senior leader would delegate away in the past, but now you need to take that back?
Yeah, absolutely. And so if you're thinking from the mindset of a church planter, then the senior leader or the planter wants to meet with everybody. So the last couple of Sundays in our church, I asked all the first-time guests, if you don't mind, I'd love to meet you personally. And then I began meeting all of them, every last one. We had a number of them in the service, and I waited perhaps about a 45-minute wait to talk to every single one, because I didn't just want that to delegate that to one of our other pastors or even to somebody who is over first impressions. They did their job already, but I wanted to meet them personally because I wanted them to hear the vision, the passion, the desire to connect with them to come directly from me and not just somebody that I delegated that to. Number two, when I come on the property, I'm driving around the whole thing because I want to make sure that it is set up. Now, I've asked all our other leaders to do it too, and they're in the process of doing it. But I want to drive around the property twice just to see if there's anything out of place that I need to re-engage in or fix or address at some level. So that's two instances, I think, Pastor Matt, where I think those are critical.
That's good. So all of that was number one.
Oh, Lord. All right. Well, let's see if we can get 9 or 10 more.
So good. That's so good. No, we got a lot more for you. It's going to be good. They'll all be in the show notes. Number two is having a core team who understands the season that we're in.
Yeah, that's a big one, everybody. Seasons are important. A leader's job is to define what season you're in and what actions we need to take in light of that season. Here at our church, we have a number of seasons, 4 of them to be exact. We have 4 seasons, so we either are in a attracting season, we're in a attaching season, we're in a adore season, or we're in a alignment season. Those are the 4 seasons we have, and your assignment is to ask and answer the question, what season are we in right now, and what season are we headed to, and how do I prepare our congregation to pull that off? So in this season, I think for us, we're in a attracting season. What that means is we care deeply about finding multiple ways of getting people to come to church. What that means is we're trying to figure out how we're going to make people aware of what we're doing, that we're here, that we're open. How do we get people who have just moved in town to identify and give us a try as it pertains to our church? How do we get people to know that we're available, open, and ready to serve them and to meet their needs? How do we get people who are hurting to at least give us a try to see what Jesus Christ can do for them? So that's the season we're in. So we're getting all our teams geared up to do what we call outreach, to do what we call how do we connect with people who are far from God.
That's really good. The third one is how to attract people who thrive in your culture. So people who thrive in our culture. We've gone through we've gone through a painstaking process of clearly identifying who thrives in our church's culture. In other words, if you do this, 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 and this, then you're going to be a success here. When you look at this list, if you're struggling with 3 or 4, you're probably not going to make it. And what you have to do at your church or your organization is look at your culture and look at how you define who's going to excel in your culture. So we've talked about these in the past, but we want to run through these again real quickly. A couple of the first ones are having a warrior spirit. So for us, one of our 8 is a warrior spirit. That's somebody who nothing's going to get in your way. When you have a task or something to get done, a warrior spirit says, nothing is going to stop me. I will pull out all the stops to accomplish what God has given me in this moment.
Yeah, and these are good particularly because they're all rooted in the Word of God. So they become character development qualities. Right. And so what these are, when somebody leaves or comes from a different church or somebody gets saved, they bring their value system to church with them. And what you've got to make sure is that the value system of the church aligns with their value system. These 8 qualities help you determine whether or not somebody can be a high-level volunteer, somebody can be on staff, or whether they can't be on staff. And you should be looking at these and asking questions around these to know whether or not they're still in the developmental phase and are not ready to go to the top echelons of your organization or your church, and use these as qualifiers to know whether or not somebody even has a chance to thrive in that culture. So Pastor Matt said number 1 was a warrior spirit. Number 2 is they love to have fun. Can you laugh at yourself? Can you truly enjoy? Are you a person that enjoys a good laugh? Or are you always just tight, miserable, focused, not goofing off any? If that's you, then you won't thrive, not in this culture, because we think laughter is good medicine. And so we think we should do pranks on each other, sane ones, sane pranks. We should do things that lighten the mood. We should. Somebody said something unwise. I remember one time I was preaching and I made up a word, and the next day somebody had the word on a T-shirt, and they were just laughing at me because it was one of the countries. You remember this one, Pastor Matt?
Just one time you made up a word?
Okay. It was one of these countries, and I was naming a list of countries, and I inappropriately said, I think it was malaria was a country, and that was an embarrassing moment. But the next day, somebody came with a shirt, and on it said, where in the world is malaria? And it was hilarious. But if you can't laugh at yourself with that, man, then you won't make it in our culture. So number 1, warrior spirit. Number 2, loves to have fun. What else you got?
Let's talk about a servant spirit. So it's basically having the mind of Christ. It's nothing is too small for me to do. So that goes back to having an owner's mentality. There's no piece of trash that I'm above picking up. The way we say it here is nobody big, everybody small. So we have the mind of Christ that we don't come to be served, but we come to serve. And that's going to tell you a lot about someone right away, their heart of service.
Yeah. Next one is you're on a mission from God. You believe that you've been sent by God in this season to meet the needs and minister to the people in this area. You're convinced of that. It's a done deal. And so you're creating a culture where everybody knows this is not for the faint of heart. This is for people militarily, like in the military, when they say, hey, we have a common enemy. That enemy is the devil, and he wants to steal, to kill, and destroy. And it's our assignment to know the word and then to pray the word and the promises of the word over people and to win people to Christ, grow people up in Christ so that they can find fulfillment, restoration, and healing. But to do that, you must realize that this is not just another assignment. You're on a mission from God.
Right. Next one is grateful. Somebody who has a grateful heart. In other words, I'm just glad I have the opportunity to be what I'm doing. God could have chose anyone, but he allowed me to be in this moment, in this opportunity, and I'm not going to feel entitled. I'm not going to feel like I'm owed something. I'm not going to feel like I deserve something, because when entitlement creeps in, gratitude and thanksgiving run away. So having a grateful heart, that I'm just grateful. I'm just great. If I can't find anything else, instead of complaining, what can I give thanks for in this moment? And,
that's good. That's really good. The other one is teachability. How teachable are you? Can anybody teach you anything in any season? Do you look for feedback as a friend? Do you look at it as a gift? That somebody that's willing to speak into your life. They don't have to, but they're willing to share some information with you that could help you become a better leader. Are you open to it? Even if you disagree with it, will you take it, listen to it, assess it for yourself personally, ask a couple other people, hey man, have you seen this as well? Because if it's there, then I don't want to be that way. I didn't know I was coming across that way, and I want to be better at what I do. So let's go and let's grow and let's develop in that area.
Right. Next up is self-aware. A leader who excels in our culture is self-aware. In other words, you know what your strengths are. You know what your weaknesses are. You're fully aware of who you are. Now, I like to think of this, to me, this is kind of like, out of all of these, this is the trick one. This is like the curveball, because really, it's near impossible to be self-aware unless you live in the context of community.
That's right.
So we have to have others around us to help us become self-aware, because we can't see our blind spots.
Yeah.
So having others around us to help teach us, to help expose us to where our blind spots are, so that we can be fully aware of ultimately knowing where am I weak, where am I strong, and be willing to take coaching whenever we can.
That's good. Rejects negativity. That just means that what we're saying is we don't want to see negativity at all. Anything you have to say to somebody, this is so important. Anything you have to say to somebody, if they can't fix it, then you're being negative, you're gossiping. So that means you should only be talking to somebody negatively about somebody else if they can address it, if you can, if you have already gone to them first, Matthew 18 them, have the conversation, take the log out of your own eye, gone to them, have the conversation. If not, then you can't just be a trash can and dump it to somebody else so that they can take it up. Your assignment then is wherever we see it as a culture, we shut that down, because that's not who we are, that's not what we're wanting, and that's not what we want to see.
That's good. So those are the different aspects, the 8 ways you can know who's going to thrive in our culture. And you can take these, or you might want to create your own to describe who's going to be successful in your culture.
That's good.
So number 4, we've gone through an owner's mentality. We've gone through having a core team who knows the season that we're in, people who excel in our culture. Number 4 is a piggyback on what we talked about before, realizing that we're on a mission from God.
Yeah, and this really refers to evangelism. The reason you got into ministry in the first place is because you want to see lost people found. And so the tendency, the trajectory of every church is to move toward insiders. Your passion as a planter, your passion as somebody that's replanting the church or replanting the student ministry is to remember that you've got to focus outwardly, which means you've got to painstakingly drive it into your group, your launch team, the people that are replanting with you, that we've got to focus on outsiders. We've got to make sure we're talking to people who are far from God, because ultimately Christ gave us the Great Commission, which is to go and make disciples. That includes evangelism and that includes discipleship. The first part evangelism, second part discipleship, we've got to do them both. And so you must never forget. You must weekly ask, how many new people did we have? You must weekly ask your teammates, how many new people did you meet that you never knew before that now you're engaging in? You've got to do that if we're going to reignite and relaunch this church. Evangelism, evangelism, evangelism. New people, new people, new people. We're on a mission from God, and that mission is to see lost people found.
And I heard Andy Stanley say, he's focused on not the people he's trying to keep, but the people he's trying to reach.
That's good.
And when we talk about focusing on new people, there's a tendency to want to not look at new people because we're so busy trying to look back to all the people we used to have.
Yeah, that's good.
And I thought we've got to focus on, we've got a big gap in the way that we're going to fill the seats, the way that we're going to reach people is by focusing on new people, new leaders, new individuals, and not focusing on the past, not having the rear view mirror mindset, but how do I focus on who God has right here, right now, that is crying out for help and crying out for opportunities.
That's good. That's good. That's really good.
Next up.
What number is this, 5?
I think that was 4 and 5.
Okay, what's number 5 say?
Number 5 was focusing on new people also.
No, that's different. So number 5 means, so 1 is evangelism. You've got to be ready. You got to come up with multiple ways that you're going to use to reach your community. Number 5 now means every single week. The scoreboard says, how many new people showed up this weekend?
Right.
How many new people, whether it's digitally or in person, how many new people showed up that we now have to follow up with? Every single time you meet, you've got to drive it in because it's all about outreach. It's all about finding lost people, which is why that's so important. So the reason why we separate those two is because 1 speaks to your strategy to reach them. 2 speaks to your accountability as to whether or not they showed up in church. And if they did, now that ignites a system of how do you assimilate them into ministry apart from that. So number 4 addresses the issue of what are your strategies? What are you going to do social media wise? What are you going to do just doing raw, cold evangelism? What you going to do in whatever strategy, flyers, whatever you want to do, but you've got to reach people. The other one talks about how do you hold people accountable individually now to make sure they brought people, and then when they do, what's your system of attaching them to the system? All right, what else you got?
That's number 6 is. Number
Perfect.
6 then leads into how do we attach new people. It's attaching new people to small groups and to serving opportunities.
That's it. So we're moving now away from or rhythm of attracting to now we're trying to attach them. This is huge. Church planters, newly crowned and anointed church planters, don't ever forget it. You've got to ask, how many new small group leaders do we have? How many new people do we have that are over ministries that people can serve with? Because now you got to attach them to something. And if you're not attaching them, then you don't know how you're doing. Because people come to a church for the communicator, they stay at the church for the relationships. So you need to make sure you are creating healthy relationships for everybody. If you see somebody that doesn't have a relationship, they won't be at your church long because they're going to find relationships. And when they find them, they're going to attach to them. So your assignment is to make sure that that's what you're trying to do and that that's how we're trying to lead in that direction. So small group leaders, if I were you, I would want to make sure I have a new small group leader that we're developing. Depending on the size of your church, every month you have one, or depending on the size of your, maybe you want 10. But you've got to be going after small group leaders because they're the ones, as the church reopens, as the church relaunches, those who are not attached to small groups, you must make sure that they get attached. All right?
That's good. That's good. Number 7 is we've got to have clear systems.
Lord have mercy.
Clear systems for everything we do. The reason we have systems is so that we don't have to guess when we get in the middle of a situation.
That's good.
When you have systems predetermined, you know what to do in every area of ministry, in every area of what you're doing, every next step someone takes. So just a handful of systems you need to have prepared and ready.
Yeah, you need to have a worship system. What's your point with worship? When somebody comes to the ministry, you should have the system that you can show them. Here's what we're trying to do. When this is working flawlessly, this is how it happens. You need to have a first impression system. When somebody comes for the first time, are they going to give us their information before they show up? What does that do? Does that ignite and initiate a series of emails that go out to them? Are they going to get a gift? Are you going to send some to them that Sunday evening? What does that look like? You've got to have a student system. You got to have a kids system. You've got to have a outreach system. What's your strategies for outreach? But all these systems are important. One, so you have clarity around what each person is doing. And then number two, so that now we can inspire people and fill the roles that it takes to manage each of these systems, so that once you get the people into it, there is a system and a rhythm at work to make sure they're headed in the right direction. All right? What else
So
we got
good.
after that?
All right, we're getting close, y'all. Number 8 is we want to reinforce. After we've done all these, reinforce our culture.
My. Culture, culture, culture. Culture is everything, man. Can the people that are new, that are coming from other environments, can they fit our culture? Can they? Everybody's culture has a cadence to it. Can the people that are coming in fit that cadence? Everybody that has a culture has a way in which we kind of meet. There's a chemistry to it. Can they fit the chemistry of your culture? Can they run at the same pace that you guys are running? Can they gel with you guys the way that your team currently gels? Not everybody can. Not everybody is right for every culture. Your assignment is to make sure that that culture is completely defined, so you know who you are and you know who you're not, so that when people come and they're not who you are, you know, hey man, there's a church down the street that works perfectly for you. I think you should go there. This is who we are as a church. That should be defined, that should be clear, so that your people come in and you know before they even start matriculating into your system, you know whether they're going to make it or not because of the culture that you have.
And that you reinforce.
Yes.
Over and over, that we celebrate, that we show others this is what it looks like to be doing well in our culture. Number 9 is to have a well-defined leadership pipeline.
Lord have mercy.
And asking how many people every week
every single
are
week
going into that pipeline.
So once you have your systems in place, I want you to think about it like a bicycle. There are only 2 pedals that you're riding. The pedal number 1 used to be seats, or do you have enough capacity, right? With a digital world, no, that opens up a little bit, and this won't become as much an issue anymore, because when you're doing buildings, you're using millions to reach thousands. When you're doing digital, you're using thousands to reach millions. So your assignment is make sure that the first pedal, you have enough seats, or you have enough digital bandwidth to reach as many people as you can. The second pedal in the bicycle of the church ministry is, do you have enough leaders? Whether that's worship leaders, whether that's children's ministry leaders, or whether that's pastoral team, all that. Do you have enough? And if you have enough leaders and enough seats or enough experiences, then the bicycle works perfectly. And it keeps going and it keeps going because you have enough leaders. Where we get stuck is when we don't have enough leaders in the pipeline to step into the gap to keep the bicycle going. Now you've lost momentum because your leadership pedal has come off, and you don't have enough people to help you lead what God has asked you to steward.
That's good. Well, we've talked a lot leadership and a lot strategy and systems. Number 10 is talk about what it looks like to have an emphasis in prayer.
No, that's good, because this is so very vital. And when you're doing leadership talks, people usually assume that, but when you're doing church planting, it's the whole ball game. It's not by might nor by power, but by the Spirit of the living God. So all of what you do is dependent on what God is doing in your life and the favor of God being upon your church and you as the leadership team, which therefore means you've got to have days of prayer. You've got to have moments of prayer. You've got to ask everybody to be fasting, rhythms of fasting, because what we're doing is a supernatural act. It is not something you can do in the flesh. It's something you have to do in the spirit, which means you need the Spirit of the living God flowing through you to be a blessing to other people. And so earnestly praying. If you're the main planter, then you need to be praying like crazy and asking God to remove the hidden barriers that you can't even see, but they're there. And it demands that God removes them so that you can keep moving forward.
Yeah. Too many of us just underestimate
Yeah.
the reality of the spiritual battle that we're in.
Absolutely.
And prayer is one of the primary weapons we have for that. Now, we've gone through 10 of these. Are there any bonuses?
Yeah, come
Any
on.
bonuses you want to
Let's do
give
the
out?
bonus. Let's do the bonus. In our culture, we call it that you need to know the axioms. An axiom is like a proverb. It is something that lets you go further faster. It's something that lets you cut through the fog. It's something that removes all the excuses so that you can lead courageously and lead quickly. And so we have about 30 of these axioms that we ask our leaders to know, and they really make a difference because when you memorize them, they become second nature in your thinking. And so when you're leading other people, you know exactly what to do, when to do it, how to do it. So Pastor Matt, why don't we give a couple of them, maybe 4 or 5 of these axioms that we think are helpful. Most of them come from a leadership book that our team read probably 5 or 6 years ago or so. And we think they're vital because it helps us go further faster. So let me start with one. One of them is the speed of the leader, the speed of the team. You know, if you're the leader, everything stops with you. If there's something to be blamed, you look in the mirror. Somebody to get credit, you look through the mirror, through the window. But the leadership axiom that says the speed of the leader, speed of the team means your people will only go as fast as you're committed to go. Your people will only work as hard as you're willing to work. Your people will only, they'll do whatever you do in essence. And so invariably I hear people saying, yeah, you give a lot of excuses why you can't do stuff, but you expect all your volunteers to go at a faster pace than you and sacrifice more than you. It just won't happen. They're taking their cues from you. So if you don't want to lead courageously and fast, then nothing else will matter.
So another great one that we say a lot on our team is performance buys freedom.
Oh, my goodness.
Performance buys freedom. One of the greatest indicators of future results is past results. So anybody on any team, the more you perform, the more the results you have, the more freedom. Because after you've proven yourself that you're going to be faithful, that you can have freedom, then all of a sudden results become what matters. And we don't care how you do it. Just get it done. But somebody who's not getting results should not be the person saying, I need more time off.
Correct. You got it. You got it. Here's another one. Pay attention to hellos and goodbyes. As leaders, we're always asking people for stuff. We're saying, hey, man, do this for me. Hey, do this for me. Hey, do this for me. So you got to maximize your moments, your 5-10 minute moments before a meeting and after a meeting to make meaningful connections so people don't feel like you're using them and that you don't care. Your assignment is to make sure when you walk in that room, first 5 minutes, you try to touch everybody, see how they're doing in the most sincere, authentic, and present way, and make a meaningful connection so that the next time you ask them for something, it doesn't seem as if you're always asking, you're always pulling something from me, but seldom depositing anything in me. What else you got, Pastor?
I want to ask you about one. There's one called the Tunnel of Chaos.
Oh, that's almost my favorite.
I think you thrive in the tunnel.
I do. I do.
What is the Tunnel of Chaos?
Yeah, let's talk about that one for a moment. This one's really good, and if you ever have the opportunity to lean into it. So I believe that healthy Christians don't back away from conflict. They actually move toward it. I think if you're healthy, you've got to love your brothers and sisters enough to not hide behind something, but to genuinely and lovingly move towards something. So if you see a character flaw in your brother or sister and it showed up a couple of times now, I think it's your responsibility to go through the tunnel. The tunnel means it's dark, it's scary, it is uncertain how it's going to end, but usually when you come through on the other side, you're usually stronger than you've ever been. The problem is too many Christians and too many Christian leaders are afraid of the darkness of the tunnel, so they never get in the tunnel. But then it usually comes back somewhere later on and hurts you because you never took the time when you had the opportunity to go through the tunnel. So leaders, your assignment is whenever there's an issue, make sure you have a great, Peacemaker's a great book to read. Make sure you have great language that your team can talk through and deal with so that you can refer to it and you can come back to it. We've read a couple of books, one that talked about the spirit of Absalom, the spirit of Jezebel, and the spirit of Korah. And it just talks about language that people can use so that when people are doing things that are inappropriate, that are hurting the unity, we can confront them in a healthy way. Another book we read called Three Kings that you need, I would recommend that you read it too. It's an incredible book that simply talks about how do you handle conflict. What happens if, are you David, are you Saul, are you Solomon in the conflict, and shows you how to handle that well. So leaders, I am pleading with you, especially in this season, to not draw blood when you disagree, but I'm encouraging you to gently and lovingly work through issues when they come up, and don't ignore them because they only get larger.
Wow, that was a lot.
Was that a lot?
That was a lot.
All right, that's enough for today then.
That was a lot. So we encourage you, again, on our webpage, visit 1cc.com/leadership roundtable. You can download the show notes so that you can follow along and take notes with us. And we just want to ask you a favor. If this has blessed you, to bless someone else, and share this, leave us a comment or a review. We're extremely grateful that you even spent the time to just tune in and listen and join along with us. We're praying for you, and we pray that you're able to go a little bit further in this season because you've got some of these tools.
Awesome, man. Hey, guys, leaders, God bless you. I know you're tired. I know you're running hard. Make sure you get some rest along the process. But this should be one of our greatest moments ever. The church is scattered, but the Spirit of God is still present in every believer. And our job is to inspire those believers to switch and make the move, but simultaneously be more aggressive than ever before with your evangelism, because now they can reach people that we never could. Inspire away, my friends. Inspire away.
Let's do this. We'll see you next time.
All right.